Welcome back. I'm Steven, and before we get started today, I'd like to thank you and everyone else watching these videos for taking the time to go ahead and watch them, and hopefully you're getting something out of them as I enjoy making them as well. And thank you for your comments and your questions and your feedback as well in those comments. They're great to read, and I enjoy taking the time to try to solve or figure out how I can help you with some of your questions as well. If you want to help me, please take your time to hit that subscribe button. And the benefit is you can get notified the next time I have a video out if you want to as well when you do subscribe, and leave a like, as it does help the videos spread across the YouTube there. And maybe there's someone else out there who might benefit from these videos spreading out there and helping them solve the problems they're looking to solve. All right, so in the last video, we covered how to basically do ETLs with a generate table fetch. And it's a very powerful tool and a very powerful processor, because it breaks up the source table or the source data we're trying to retrieve data from into partitions based off the sizes that we'd like. So it makes it easy to handle. It can solve the problem of out of memory errors that we can get in NiFi if we consume and over allocate ourselves by trying to consume too much data at once if we don't have the resources available on our server. So it can be a good way to manage our resources and just keep things moving smoothly and allowing us to insert the desired amount of records at a time into our tables. All right, so the next one we're going to look at, which is another way about doing ETLs or just getting data from tables in general. So this is our query database table. Let's go ahead and grab that processor. Query database table. There are two versions of it. There is a record version as well. So keep that in mind. That can be a benefit to using this one. You can use either the normal one, which just outputs the data and the flow files into Avro format, or you can use the record version of it, which will let you pick after you set up your record reader and record writer. Or actually, in this case, it would be the writer only, right? So you set that up, you can pick the format you want to use, and then you build your schemas for that as well. There is a benefit where you have the record version of the query database table available, but inside of a generate table fetch, that's not available over here. You'd actually have to, if you wanted to do that, you would be using the execute SQL record. So SQL, this one right here. So that would still take in your SQL statement flow files from the generate table fetch. And then from here, you could go ahead and automatically convert it to JSON or CSV or any other format that you're looking for in order to get it to your source destination or to your destination. So let's go ahead and continue now with our ETL with query database table. So we're going to be working with the same data set again. Nothing's going to change there. Let's move this up. Okay, so first thing we want to do, and we'll look at two different ways to mess with this one, but first we are going to do our standard stuff. So we know we want to set this one up, and to set this one up, we are going to use SQL Server again. We'll go ahead and specify the MySQL SQL, and then the table name is still going to be active flights. We are not using, in this case, for this example, we're not going to be using the column return or the where clause or the custom query. Now we could do a custom query here, and it can be very, I use it a lot actually when, like if I have tables that have like audit timestamps on the end, I don't really need those for me because those are only, for most of the time, they're valuable only for that table and that source table for it keeping track of the audit information, where I would have my own set of audit information inside my own table to keep track of. So I don't need to bring that one over from there. So a custom query to make sure you're only getting all the columns except for maybe those type of columns is very helpful. We want to use ID again as our maximum value column. And just a reminder, this allows the processor to keep track internally of the max value for the last row that it retrieved. And it can be a comma separated list, as the description says, in a hierarchy type of structure. You want to test those out and make sure they're working the way you want them to, if you do decide to add a comma separated list to this, make sure you're getting the results that you intend. And then the fetch size. So in this case, we're going to limit not the fetch, but the max flow file per to 100. And the reason for that is it can be very dangerous to do too many at once. You can easily, so when we're doing this one versus the generate fetch, we're partitioning here. When we go to run this one over here, this query database table is just going to grab everything in that table on the first try. It won't be until it's caught up where it starts to get incremental, right? So we want to be careful how we set this one up first time, or we could run into we could easily cause out of memory issues inside of NiFi if we're not prepared on how to handle that. Take down our entire NiFi environment, have to go restart it, and just deal with hassles we don't want to deal with. You have some other options as well, just like normal. Let's go ahead and leave this alone though. So we're done with that one. We need to handle the, no, success is good. We're going to schedule this for every 5 seconds and it will kick off again. All right, so from here we know we have Avro coming out of this. So we need to convert the Avro to JSON so we can prep it to go into a new table. And let me move this over. I don't have enough room to put it on the side. There we go. That one's there. Just trying to keep it nice and compact today. Now, from here, we know we need to take it into JSON format. So that's where we're going to do or we're taking the JSON now, which is the output, and we are going to turn it into SQL. All right, so we have that there. And like I said, we're going to do the JSON to SQL, grab that, success, done. Now, right now, the way this is designed that we have set it up is we query, we're going to get flow files with 100 rows each. So it's going to do one big query where the table is like almost, I think it's above 200,000 now. So our 200,000 records there are going to get queried all at once. But when the flow files get built and generated, they're going to be rows of 100. So one flow file, 100 rows inside of it, right? Now, there's a problem right now, which is the JSON to SQL. This really only deals, this can only deal with, or the put SQL can only deal with one flow file with one record each. So, oops, I didn't grab the right one. So where that becomes a problem is if we try to just do, no, I spelled that wrong. If we just do it like this and we leave things as they are, this is not going to give us the desired outcome because we have 100 rows in the flow file. So this convert will easily convert this for us and give us 100 comma separated, or give us JSON that is row by row, right? Or depending on how we have set it up. The convert will not do that. So let's look at the usage on this convert. So ideally when we use it, we send one flow file in, we get one result out because it converts the JSON into attributes and you can't shove multiple rows into one attribute. So you have to do it one-to-one. Now, if we look here in this, it tells us you need to do it needs to be a flat JSON. So we got that. Consists of single JSON element for each field map, or for each field maps and single type. And then it does get to a part where, okay, so if the input is an array of JSON elements, each element in the array is output as a separate flow file to the SQL relationship. So this is telling us that we have 100, we're bringing in 200,000 here. We're spitting them out as one flow file per 100, so 1 to 100. This is not going to do anything. It's just going to leave it as is. And then when they go into, when the flow file passes into the convert JSON to SQL, it's going to see if it's passed as an array of JSON, then this is going to automatically break that array of 100 into flow files into a one-to-one relationship. So now 100 will come, one will come in of 100 and we'll get one flow file will go in, 100 will come out. That's what we expect as the outcome in this case. Now, that only works if during this convert stage from Avro to JSON, we make sure that we leave it in the default of array. If we put it in none, it's line by line and they're comma separated. But if we leave them in the array, then they'll be encased in a container, or the array container. So let's go ahead and do that, because that's desired. That's what we need. So let's terminate the failure. Terminate the failure in the original down here. Failure original. What did I miss? Oh, set it up. Okay, so set that one up. We're doing an insert. This is going to be to, let me look at my table real quick. So I have a new one called Active Flights Temp 2 for this data. And the, oops. Yeah, aviation is our catalog name, and everything else is good to go. All right, so let's take a look and see what we get from this. So first thing is we run the main one. I'm gonna stop it right away. Whoops, what did I miss? Okay, so I set this up wrong. And you make sure, oh, I do want to, in this case, I want to use a custom. My custom is going to specify the table name and the catalog name together. So I'm just saying select all from aviation.activeflights. That's what I want to do for this one. Go ahead and apply that one. Now we can go ahead and run it. So the timer, it doesn't have a max value yet because we haven't ran it successfully. So we can go ahead and start it, stop it real quick, just because I don't want it to run again. It's running. We have 2 tasks right now running. The start and stop. There we go. So we're almost at 200,000 in there. So at 100 each, we have 1,932. We go ahead and take a look at these flow files. We can look at their attributes. We can see the max value ID is being recorded and added as an attribute here. And we can see the row count inside the flow file is 100. So exactly what we're looking for. And then we do the convert. It keeps them in the array container. And now, let's go ahead and set this to 1 every 5 seconds real quick. So we have 1932 here. We're going to take in 1 and we should get 100 out. There we go. Exactly what we were looking for. So there's our expected outcome. Go ahead and take a look at that now. If we look, we can see this is just 1 in here. We can't see it because it's attributes now. So we look in here and we have our attributes applied now. So there you go. The values, the types are all there. All good to go. Which means that, excuse me, now we can go ahead and insert these into the table. Set this one up. Oops. Oh, that was wrong. Just like that. We're done. We can terminate everything because we're not handling these. And there we go. We should be able to make these 100 go straight into the table. And let me check the table. I'll check the table off screen real quick. And we have 100 rows in there. So that worked perfectly. We can go ahead and get rid of that artificial 5-second wait. Start it, and we can see flow files just flow on through. And the bottleneck becomes the put SQL processor, as it's only processing 100 flow files at a time in a batch of 100, because we have that set for batch size of 100. So 100 flow files get inserted at a time into the table. So this is not the fastest way we can do this, though, inside of NiFi. Let's look at another way that we can handle this one and maybe make it go a little bit faster. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to stop the processors because we don't want to wait for this. By the way, I have updated to the newest version of NiFi. So the most important thing to me in this new version has been the long awaited for where I can right click on the canvas now and say empty all queues. This is, I tell you what, I've been dying to have this option, and I'm thrilled to have it in here now. So there we go. We've cleared up all the queues all at once. And from here, we're going to modify things. And make a little change on how we handle this. So we can actually cut this to a two-step process, and I'll show you how. So from the query database table, we're going to now add a put database. So I don't think I've used it before in a video, but I use this all the time at work. I mean, this is one of my favorite processors to use because this allows me to handle bulk flow files. Let me show you what I'm doing here. So we right click on this one, we say view the usage. And in this one, we have the put database record processor uses a specified record reader to input possibly multiple records from an incoming flow file. Unlike the other one, this one can handle all by itself. It can use a record reader to take in any format we want in one as part of the processor. So it cuts out the extra processors and does it all in one. And at the same time, this can deal with multiple rows at a time. No more having to split these out. So it will ingest them and just deal with it, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we want to take first of all, we need to reset the counter on this because we're going to put these back in the table. I'm going to truncate the table at the same time. So I'm going to delete this, copy, paste. There we go. That new one will have a 0 value. We'll go ahead and connect it here just because. And just so we can slow the flow and show the difference in how long it takes to process this. All right, so we have that there. And yeah, I know, it's not straight. There we go. All right, bring this one over here a little bit. So this is still important. We don't have to change this. This is just fine. We know it still outputs an Avro format flow file for us, right? So we can take this and deal with that. The difference here will be is, as you can see, we're going from here to here. 2 processors doing the work of 4 down here on this side, right? That's all we're going to need. So over here, we need to select our record reader. So the format coming into this one, and I have let's go ahead and make a new one, Avro. We'll just leave it, not give it any special name. Apply, go back in there, and now let's go set that one up or enable it. Avro reader, we look at it. There's nothing we want to infer the schema information because it's embedded into the flow file because it is Avro format. So go ahead and enable that when we're done here. All right, now we come back out here. Let's finish setting this one up. Back to MySQL. Statement type is a insert. There is so in this new version of NiFi, some processors now have the ability to do upserts. This is only applicable if the database platform that you're going into has functionality to use an upsert. So we're not using that anyways. We're just doing an insert. MySQL Server information. The catalog is back to, let's see, catalog is supposed to be aviation. And then Tim table 2 is my table name. And we are looking good there. None of these other ones we need to worry about. We're not doing updates or anything, so we don't have to worry about the ID field here. We're going to leave that alone. First, let's go ahead and set up the failure, retry, and success as terminated. And we're done there. Let me terminate off screen here. I'm going to truncate the table. I'm going to verify it truncated. It is empty. And there we go. And then in this case, I'll let these guys run over here. But I will not run the put because we'll get duplicate IDs. Because I'm using the same ID I pulled from the source as the ID I put into the new table. And it's set up as a key. So that will cause a conflict and an error. All right, so here we go. Now, the benefit here, matter of fact, you know what? Let's just stop these two. Here's one huge benefit. So right now we have query database table set to do max flow file of 100 rows per flow file. But we don't need to do that here. This really just comes down to how many rows I want to insert into my target table, my destination at one time. comes down to performance and stuff like that. So you decide or find out from your admin what's the optimum amount I can insert at once that would give me optimum performance. But you could do one big, maybe I just want to duplicate this guy real quick and put it all over here. I can do that all at once in one flow file. And we'll just demonstrate that real quick. So we go ahead and configure this one. And we say, you know what, 0. So maximum size. We'll go ahead and start it. This will take longer to run because it has to query that entire table and build the flow file, which is going to be a pretty fat flow file here. And in this case, if I go back and look at my off screen, I'm going to look at that table. And that table is 193,200 rows. So what we are expecting is, wow, that was actually pretty quick, right? So we look at this flow file, we check out the details, look at the attributes, and we can see that we have a row count of 193,200. And here's the best part. All we have to do, as long as we set it up correctly, is say start. It's not how many we really want to insert at once most of the time, but we're going to do that, and they will just all go in as one big batch. Especially because I don't think I have batches set up. Nope, no batch. So give that one, it's probably going to take a couple seconds, maybe a minute, maybe a little longer, but this is a really strong way to use this one, right? And one of the cool things is, just like the generate table fetch over here, where it's using a max value column to keep track of not the partition, but the column here. This knows that every time I run it every 5 seconds, it will grab only new information, new rows inside that table. This will do the same thing over here. I have it set up 5 seconds. It's using the ID as my max value column. So it's very performant, and the cost for this to query into that source table is very low, as it's only starting for where it left off last time. And as we saw inside of here when we looked at this, oh, it's already done. Well, it's getting there. When we looked at this inside Providence, don't see it there. We're gonna have to wait for it. I don't think it's gonna show up here yet. No, okay. But when we looked at the attribute on here, there was an attribute for max value, for the max value column, which is how this processor is keeping track internally of where it left off. So we get an awesome little feature from that can just move forward. So if we say, normally I think I set mine for like 1,000 per flow file. That way I'm only inserting 1,000 at a time. There we go. That one's all done. Yeah, it took a little bit longer because it was really fat. That was a really big flow file there. But it got done. I'm going to look at my table off screen real quick. And 193,200. So all of them got inserted. And that was just 2 steps. That's all that is there, right? I mean, for what I'm doing here, it works perfectly. Now, if I was to let this one pass through here, this would just break. And it would probably crash NiFi, get an out of memory exception, because it's trying to handle this, and it can't deal with that big fat flow file there. So let's go ahead and empty that before I make a mistake and run it. And there you go. So 2 different ways to get things done. Using the query database table, we can go the long route, which there might be situations where this is more ideal, especially where you're querying the table, you split it out into one flow file each. And the reason could be because maybe you have a couple extra steps in here that are enriching that flow file with some extra information, and it would make sense to do it that way. But another cool thing about that is, just like we did in the past over here. Oh, I can't remember. I think I'm doing, yeah, so when we get results from this API pool of 100 at a time in the JSON, the Jolt can manipulate those 100 together, and the query record can work against a batch of 100 or whatever's in that flow file. So we could have a query record in here somewhere that enriches we could put one in here, and an extra step could be query record here. And from here, we are using that query record to enrich the data row by row. But because the query record will query against the entire flow file, it can enrich and do our SQL statement against all that data at one time. So it would still be shorter, this route, just sometimes there's reasons why you need to go this way. And this may not be the best way to handle it here. All right, so that covers the using our query database table processor. It is a very good processor. I use it all the time. I like using it for a lot of different things. And I also use I use it for a couple things as well. It's very good for ETLing, and I like to use it for duplicating the data on the other side from that source table. Just have it raw and be duplicated. There you go. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. Subscribing is definitely helpful to me. It lets me know which videos lets me know that you appreciate all these videos and encourages me to want to make more of them for you. And it lets you get notified. And don't forget to leave comments if you have any questions or anything, and hit that like button. That way I know if this video is helpful to you and if you enjoyed this type of video. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.